time. It is live. Yep. It's so pretty. Yep. It's so pretty. Yep. It's so pretty. At least you can't hear the music though.
Hi, Isla. Good to see you. How are you today, hon?
Really good to see you. And I love that new intro. It's so pretty.
You know, I had to smile because I could not hear anything with the intro. But in the background for me, I had the birds going by. Everything was chirping so sweetly. And then here came the ambulance sounds. I don't know. Maybe coming to save the day. I don't know.
Life in the city.
Yes, life in the city. Yes. It feels good. I'm back in Amsterdam. You know, I was in, for those of you who don't know, I was in Colorado for a little bit. We were celebrating our 15th anniversary.
Mm-hmm. It was magical. It was so magical.
It really was. It was a night of just beautiful people. I was in love all night long. It was wonderful. And I have you to thank for that night. I have Victoria to thank for that night. So it was, you guys just said, just show up, which is, it's a rare blessing to be able to be told, just show up. Mm-hmm. So thank you. Yeah, it was wonderful.
We were not alone in wanting to celebrate the work that you've done and the way that you move in the world. And it was so delightful to be able to come in community with people. Alicia's mom was there, 98, kicking up the dance floor. And there's something really powerful about being a part of a community that's so dedicated to connection and change. Mm-hmm. It can feel slow at times, but it's a different way of moving. And I'm really grateful and honored to be able to be part of it.
You know, speaking to slow, the past couple of days, I've been watching something called Slow TV. Every once in a while I watch it, and I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's just these channels where sometimes it's nothing but a camera on a river or something in nature, or you're on a train and the train just keeps going through the mountains or whatever it is. And it could be an hour, 2, 3 hours of this slow TV. And it's wonderful to just decompress with. And it brings me back to that center. And especially when it's those videos through nature itself. Mm-hmm. I would check it out if you guys have not before. Mm-hmm. Slow TV.
I put something like that on sometimes for my dog, but but one of the things that so I'm going to use that to shamelessly plug our very exciting initiative for April, which is Get Outside. So it's just a step past that. And maybe you watch the slow TV and you think, gosh, I'd like to go see a river. And then you go outside.
Which actually maybe stand by the river or maybe wade in the river. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have a couple of options for folks. You can, and we'll talk about it in more detail, I'm sure, but you can host a Get Outside gathering. Check out our website. And then you can gather your friends together and make a small donation to Harmony Voices. We'll even have special stickers for the first 100 people that join us. And go outside with your friends and make it a stroll, make it a hike, make it a stand by the river, make it a walk to the pub. Just get outside with your friends.
And make that donation, whether it's in your name or in honor of someone else. or if you want to contact us and say, hey, listen, I want to sponsor somebody to go there and to be in nature. Yeah. So, and if you go, it's a cool little gift to give you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll show you a little bit later, something that Victoria put together for us.
Yes, it's lovely. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about for this Gaia Gossip is that because it's Women's History Month, and we have a very special guest to talk to us from a unique perspective around healing and community and Indigenous wisdom. And so I'm really excited to be here and having Peggy, and I'm going to Peggy Petahtegoose from Atikmeksheng Anishnawbek First Nation. I am so sorry. I, I have the name Isla, and I usually am pretty good about practicing. And today I tanked it out. Sorry about that. But I know that we had an opportunity to speak with Peggy before the show and get to know her a little bit, and I'm really excited to have her join us today.
I'm very happy. Victoria said, hey, listen, I have someone special that I would love to have on the show. It's perfect coming in for Women's Month. And Peggy's going to share some wisdom around being issues of birth, doula, what does it mean to be a mother, and how are we connected? So we're going to get that gift from her. And, there are so many Indigenous women, there's so many women who have done so much for us that have gone unnoticed. Their names are never mentioned. And I was doing some reflection on some of the women in the Indigenous communities that have really served their people and beyond. And I just want to acknowledge a few of them before we bring Peggy on. And I'm going to start with Wilma Mankiller, who was the chief of the Cherokee people. My mom is Eastern Band Cherokee, Tsalagi. And Wilma Mankiller she was the first female principal chief for the Cherokee people. And once she got into office, education rose, unemployment rose, infant mortality declined drastically. And it's those kind of things that can make a huge difference for not only your immediate circle of people, but then generations to come. Then I was reflecting on, now we're going back into the late 1800s. There was a woman by the name of Susan LaFlèche, and she was the first Native American from Omaha tribe, first Native American doctor. She actually went for the medical degree. And she did this because she recognized, she witnessed firsthand how Native peoples were not being treated simply by the fact that you're not Native and it's the white man who is the doctor. And so she decided, I'm going to change that. And she went to school and she graduated and got her medical degree. And then she also led a delegation to DC to discuss the issues of land, that maternal land for mother. And because at that time, like many areas, the white man was coming through and they were saying this land is ours and you don't know how to steward the land, so we're taking it from you because you're not worthy of it. And she took that delegation to DC and they changed their minds about it, and people were allowed to continue to be on the lands that they had been on for thousands of years, right? Many people know of the story of Sacagawea, a Shoshone Hidatsa woman who she was part of the Lewis and Clark expedition, and she really was the one who saved them. Mm-hmm. Use some choice words. I'm going to just say she saved them at a very young age. And of course, at the end of the story, they return home and her husband, quote unquote, basically the man who she was sold off to, I believe his last name was Charbonnet, I believe. Toussaint Charbonnet, I believe. he did nothing for her. He was paid $500. He was given 300 and some acres of land, but she was given nothing, nothing. And it wasn't until Clark acknowledged her and said to him, something's got to be changed here, that things did change. As a matter of fact, she died after giving birth to her second child. And it was Clark who took the responsibility of raising the children simply because he felt indebted to her for what she had done for him and for that expedition. Who else am I thinking? Forgetting about right now. Lida Conley. She was Wyandotte, and she was the first Native female attorney, and took some issues to the Supreme Court. There again, around land, and what is right and what is not right. And they were plowing through in this particular area, which was sacred area. It was a cemetery area for her people. And she took it to the Supreme Court. They dismissed her. But down the line, they did make that particular area into a federal reserve. So it became a state park. And so in some ways, the lands of her people were protected and in honoring those who had passed. I can go on. There's Tall Chief, Maria Tall Chief, who was a ballerina. A prima ballerina for New York City, the ballet company, and New York City prima ballerina, who actually went to Moscow and performed at the Bolshoi. There's an endless list of women that we can go down with, who will continue in so many areas of the world, remain nameless, right? And yet it made such an impact in the world.
I think that's so many countless people labor, women, Indigenous women, and make a difference and are never known. And that's being part of the ripple effect that community that you weave together so well, I feel like is a reminder, if we all do our part, we can be part of the change.
Absolutely. Yeah. So anything else we need to talk about before Victoria and Peggy jump on here?
I think that everything, follow us on social media to stay in the loop on the dirt, and reach out to learn about the Get Outside events that we're doing or to host one.
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, you were talking about basically the Get Outside, which is kind of the bigger perspective of what we're doing. And so we're going to be at NOCO, the Northern Colorado Hemp Expo, April the 11th through the 13th. And that Saturday morning, Victoria has put together a nice stroll for us. It's not necessarily a hike up the mountain. For those folks who are coming in from out of state, don't think you're going to need oxygen to go through this. We're going to come together. We're going to do a stroll through nature and just get reconnected, get regrounded in that space. So that's going to be Saturday morning. We're going to have a little social at 8 o'clock in the morning. So come hang out, have some of our CBD creamer that we'll talk about at some point. And then at 9 o'clock, we're going to do that walk. And then fast forward the following week, we're going to be in Amsterdam, and we're going to be doing something similar there in honor of Earth Day. We're going to have a weekend celebration, a weekend festival. And Victoria is coming out here as well to do another walk and reminding us of our connection to nature. So
stay tuned and join us. And now we're excited to introduce Victoria hosting our show today with Peggy.
Hi, hello everybody. I'm so excited to be here, and it's an honor. Thank you so much, Alicia and Aisala and her many voices. I was tearing up just realizing the gift of being able to share wisdom and to help people reconnect. And then the gift that is being able to have a wonderful conversation with Peggy Petahtegoose, who means a lot to me in terms of when we're thinking of Women's History Month and we're thinking of motherhood. Peggy is the mother of my adopted sister, who I've had the pleasure of watching her through her motherhood journey. I've had the pleasure of watching Peggy be amazing nukumas, and she also is a very talented healer. She's done a lot of wonderful things to help me heal. And she's going to talk to us today a little bit about the importance of motherhood and care from a spiritual, from a physical, from a emotional care space. Like I said, I've watched her daughter Genevieve, who is my best friend, go through motherhood, and I understand the importance of it. It takes a village, it takes a tribe, it takes a lot of wisdom and care. And so Peggy's going to share why this is super critical for us. But first things first, I just want to let Peggy introduce herself and tell us about her sacred homelands and a little bit about why she got involved in pre and postnatal yoga.
Ani Bojo, Peggy Petahtegoose, Dishnakas, Wawanokwe, Indawa, Omash Kuns, Indodem. Atikmeksheng Anishnawbek da Agawas, New Hampshire, Indindow, Anishnawbek Endow. My name is Peggy Petahtegoose. My spirit name is Wawanokwe. I am from the Elk Clan of Atikmeksheng Anishnawbek First Nation in Sudbury, Ontario, west of Sudbury, Ontario. But I currently reside in New Hampshire, and I am an Anishnawbek woman. My homelands are north of the Georgian Bay in Canada. My family has been there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. When you speak of being a mother, for me, when I say I want to go home, no matter where I am, that's my mother. That's my home, those lands, the waters, the sacred waters where I go to swim and just walk and recognize that generations upon generations of my family and relations have been on this land. It's a connection that I think a lot of people don't have. The pleasure and that scope of understanding, of knowing what it means to truly be connected to the earth through your lineage. Where did you want me to go from there, Victoria?
No worries. And I mean, I think where you're going is beautiful, and you're right. That disconnect from a perspective of many of us, younger generations are feeling that disconnect. We're feeling, and there is something really beautiful about being able to walk on your homelands and connect. And that's part of, to give a call back to the Get Outside, that's part of what the fundraising initiative is going for, to help Indigenous groups get land back and to put Indigenous land back in Indigenous hands, because we know how to care for it, we know how to steward it, and we can care for Mother Earth. But I think caring for Mother Earth, we also know how to care for each other. And what you had talked about and what you and I had discussed before is that a lot of women at times can feel, especially when we come from this colonized lens, right? That motherhood, and I can see the things on like social media that are like, I'm a mom and I'm juggling these 20,000 things. And, motherhood was meant to be a community effort. And so you talk about that a lot of women can feel isolated during the journey of motherhood, and you want to help them get back to that colonized or decolonized lens of connection and community. And one of the ways you do that is through pre and postnatal yoga. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I have a personal passion for the prenatal and postpartum yoga because I had lost my mother just a couple of years before I had my first girl. And I had sister-in-laws that had their own children and sisters and mothers, but I did not have either of those. And I had quite the learning curve because I had nobody to guide me. And this is where I realized I'm not alone in this. There are so many women, girls out there that don't have a mother, they don't have a sister, they don't have aunties, they don't have their grandmother, they don't have community. And in the past, up until like 1950, when everything changed, you would always be able to rely on your family, your village to support you if you were pregnant. And you were given advice, you were helped, you were guided. Even so, for more traditional people, which I believe is a very big missing part for a lot of people today too, is ceremony. So there was the ceremony at the birth of a child. There was a ceremony for the naming of the child. There was a ceremony for when they first began to walk, their first steps. So in more traditional cultures, we have all these ceremonies recognizing the life that we have helped bring upon the earth. And we don't see any of that now. And what we also have is a lot of, people who are women, because this is about women, who don't have friends. I saw that myself. My last child, I was 42. There's not a lot of women out there at 42 having a baby. So you're very isolated. And I don't really believe that is communicated to people, young girls or, want to be moms, that you may have that point in your time where you feel very isolated and alone. And sadly, it is the truth. So so this all brought me to when I went for yoga teacher training in 2010. Our last weekend was prenatal yoga. And I just fell in love with these beautiful, pregnant, full blossom bellies. And so that was my passion from then on. I was like, I have to spend my time with these women. And I find that having that group together, they find their community. They can't necessarily rely on even their husbands or partners because most of them don't know anything either, which is sad. That should be addressed. And because this world we live in now is so focused on go, 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 on the other end of that spectrum, now you have your baby, and I've seen it so many times. The girl gets out of the hospital, if she has a birth in a hospital, and the next day she's out at the mall with her brand new baby. It's like, no. You should be home bonding with your baby. You should be home protecting your baby. You should be home nurturing your body, which just spent 9 months growing this little soul. And when you give birth, your body doesn't just like fall back into place. Pre-baby, you have and this is where it becomes hard for women to stand up, is they have this wound about the size of a dinner plate in their belly, but you can't see it, so nobody recognizes it, and it's easy to just push it away and forget it. Your body needs time to heal. And this again is where community comes in to help support you during that 10th month, that baby moon cycle. During my prenatal classes, I always talk about, I try to sift through all of the stuff that's out there, yeah. Why you want to eat warm foods, what's a mommy voice, and why you're not waiting until the baby's born. You need to do that because you need to develop a team who's going to support you. So that team is the person. That's one of the first questions I ask the girls and the ladies. Who's your team? What do you mean, who's a team? Like, when you are in labor, you're not going to be able to, you're not going to want to be making decisions. So you need to have the person you trust the most to stand by you, whether you have a midwife, a doula, you're going to the hospital, whether you're doing it at home, whatever your choice is, because sometimes babies come when they're least expected. They are going, you need that person to say, no, she doesn't want intervention. No, she doesn't want drugs. Yes, she wants to eat a small snack protein because she cannot birth a baby when she's starving. She's hungry. She needs nourishment. Yes, I'm going to kiss my husband. Why? Well, because that helps the cervix relax. And that is the goal when you're birthing a child, a relaxed cervix. So there's just so many layers that the younger generation, the women of today, say the last maybe 75 to 100 years, where that intergenerational family has been disconnected, where all that wisdom and wealth has been lost. This is the gaps I'm trying to fill in for these young women, to understand why they need to do these things when they're pregnant, why they need a strong team, and then, the whole thing of, what do I eat? How do I dress? Why am I going to practice yoga? Because breathing, and I say it every single time, your homework every single day is to practice this breathing practice. Because when it comes time for labor and delivery, at a certain point in time, that's all going to go out the window, except your breath. Yeah. And if you have your breath and you've been practicing as your homework every single day, like you should have been, you will be able to get yourself through your contractions. Yep. But you have to do the homework.
You have to do the homework. You have to breathe. I mean, breathing is important. I'm overwhelmed, which I can imagine. Birthing a baby is a very overwhelming, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually venture. Like, breathing is important. And thank you so much for all that information. One of the pieces that you talked about is like the mom voice, and something really intriguing to me that we had talked about prior was like the importance of the mom voice, the importance of body autonomy, because we don't in our society really encourage women and girls especially to use their voices. The opposite happens, and a lot of times we get silenced. A lot of times we can get boxed. And something that you mentioned that is really key to your practice is not just the physical part of the yoga and moving your body and these positions that are going to help in terms of birthing, but developing your voice, developing and saying, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, these are my boundaries, and really standing in that power and thinking about how that develops. So how do you help women develop their mom voice, and what does that kind of look like for them in terms of the impacts?
Well, there is a very distinctive change. So during the yoga practice, so in reality, there's probably 10 prenatal yoga postures, and they are basically primitive postures. Being on your hands and knees is probably, the most known, or being in a squat position. So nowadays you're going to, squat and hold onto the back of a sofa. But in the past, you would have held on to a tree or a branch, or somebody would have been supporting and you would have been holding. So these are very natural things. Mm-hmm. And that's how I tell them, when you're in labor, listen to your body and move, just move. But one of the practices we do right from the get-go is, it's a very simple posture. We're standing there. I have them raise their arms up over their head. Their knees are slightly bent. And as their arms come down, I have them yell, ha! Now, I'm not going to put my full voice into that now, but I tell them, I want to hear your mommy voice. And I get, ha, ha, ha. And, we'll do that 5 to 7 times. And like, girls, you need that mommy voice. So week 2 comes around and I'm like, okay, mommy voice. Ha! It's a little bit louder. By the 3rd week, they're in a full ha! And it's like, okay, now you get it. This is part of taking back your voice, which goes back to in the 1950s when men started coming into delivery rooms, which were also a new thing, taking away the power of the women, strapping them down to a bed, making them have the monitors, making them have all this stuff. Allopathic medicine is fabulous when it's needed, but we're not sick. In Europe, women don't give birth in a hospital. They do it at home. They do it with a midwife. They do it with a doula. You only go to the hospital if you are a complication. And a good midwife and doula here in this country will have a good standing relationship with a local hospital. Mm-hmm. And you need to be able to have that voice. And this is what you have to teach your partner and your team, so that, when you're in that labor, and they want to all of a sudden induce you or break your water, which do nothing for you. They don't help you. They can be more harmful. And we won't go down that part of the road, but learning to use their voice before they have the baby, so that, one of the earliest signs of me that I share with them is when you're going to share, oh, I'm pregnant. When you do, don't give them a date. If you give them a date, what happens is 2 or 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks before that date is due, you get all these questions. When are you due? What's taking so long? Aren't you done yet? So instead I offer them, I'm having a baby in the spring. I'm having a baby in June. Something more generalized. The other favorite thing that they need to find their voice for is people find out you're pregnant. Oh, let me tell you about my horror story. No. Again, mommy voice. No, thank you. Don't tell me your horror story. It's going to offer me nothing. If you have a story that you can share with me that is informative and helpful, I will happily listen, but please don't tell me your horror story. This does not bring me joy. Learning how to say thank you. All those well-meaning mothers and aunties and people who have, tried and true, or just, this is an idea, you should eat this, you should do this, you should not do that. Like, you are in charge of your pregnancy. You have to decide what you want to do. You have to decide, I'm not going to work the last 2 weeks before I'm due, so that I am well rested. I am not going to take these drugs. Or women who are over 36, often they'll say, because you're older, we want you to have these tests. And you have a choice. You can say, sure. Or you can say, no, because really it doesn't benefit me at all. Or my baby. In fact, it could be something that's, detrimental to both of us. You finding your voice with your caregivers, the doctors or the hospital, is really important, because they are not there for your benefit necessarily. They're there if you need it, but their job is also a business. Yeah. So you need to know what your options are. And there's like 10 different questions that you should definitely be asking whoever your care provider is going to be, and you want to be able to express your opinions about, all right, this is my religious belief, and this is where I'm coming from, this is what I want, and have somebody not try to steer you in a different direction. Like baby boys, circumcision. It really does nothing for them unless you live in a hot, humid climate and or it's part of your religion.
Mm-hmm.
But most places will try to offer circumcision. It's like, no, why? It's not necessary. You have to have that voice to say, well, what are you basing that on? Well, I don't agree with you, or I do agree with you. And you need to be able to stand strong in your decision of how you are going to have this baby and this pregnancy.
There's so many options out there, and we have
Mhm.
a world, especially with the internet and social media, that's so full of information. And you can Google MD so many things, and it's really important to have that body autonomy. It's really important to have that clarity, and I can sense and feel just even standing up for myself and just things that aren't, motherhood per se, having people question, right? Are you sure? Are you sure? And even more so, why it's important to find that voice. It's important to find, this is how I want to have the baby. These are the things that I need for my body, for my care. Because it's a lot of work. It's you are growing life. I would love to talk about the spiritual side of, and the divinity of giving life, giving birth, and adding that to that. There's so many traditional medicines and practices and viewpoints out there. And I remember being in humanities class and them talking about that so many indigenous cultures revere and woman and have female deities because women give life. And they're like, that's a really big deal, y'all. Like, we should worship that. And so I'd love to kind of hear some of your thoughts on some of those traditional spiritual paths and even just some of your own viewpoints.
Women are the portals for all of the new souls. So we should be supported by those around us. And I think that, in a culture, in this country, industrialized countries, it's not recognized for the importance of the job that's being done. You're growing life inside of you. People have forgotten how to honor life. Not just us anymore, and I do say industrialized countries, they've forgotten about our connection to the rest of the world, to the earth that we walk on, and the trees, and the air, and the water. These are all sacred things, and they're all interconnected, and they're all necessary for our well-being, our spiritual well-being. And one of the things I do ask my girls when they're in a class is, okay, we're here taking care of you physically with yoga. We're here taking care of, how you're going to feed yourself. But what are you doing spiritually? What are you doing to help yourself spiritually? Are you, and that doesn't mean it's not about religion. This is about spirituality. This is about, are you offering yourself loving kindness? Are you offering yourself time to be for self-care? Are you offering yourself time for your own meditation and your own affirmations of
Mhm.
love.
Yeah.
You know, are you sitting in quiet
I breathe.
in that, you know, space of devotion
Yep.
that, you know, is so important to you, because that's going to translate right to your baby.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, you and your baby are totally connected.
Mm-hmm.
When you're breathing, if you have your breathing practice, you don't have to be physically moving in a yoga class. You can be having your breathing practice, and that's part of a mantra or a chant, or maybe you're breathing through some artwork that
Mm-hmm.
you're creating, or poetry, or are you singing? Are you dancing? What are you doing for your own spiritual good? What is it that brings you joy and happiness and bliss? Because you need to continue that and not lose that,
Yeah.
because you want to be able to share that with your baby. When
Yeah.
your baby is born, and you know, now we come into postpartum yoga, bring your baby. We're going to have your baby holding your baby while you do yoga poses. I'm going to show you how to do some very gentle baby massage. These are all things that connect not only them with their, keep them connected with themselves, but keep them connected with their baby, and also with that community of women and babies that have just, you know, found each other. I have seen it over the years. There have been friendships, and before the babies are even born, there's a play date. And that's all part of having a good spiritual base in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we've definitely kind of talked about that emotional piece of finding your mom voice and speaking up, and that spiritual piece and finding, you know, what connects you. And I love that idea of creativity, you know, in prenatal and then postnatal, and really thinking about community building. And so, you know, we're gonna invite Alicia back in a few minutes here. But before we do that, I do want to create a space. Do you have a particular story of motherhood in your own journey, or because I have the honor and the privilege of seeing you be a mother and seeing you be a Nogamos, which means grandmother in Anishinaabe, and seeing just the care and compassion, because there's also this idea of expanding the definition of motherhood, because at the end of the day, you know, all of these acts are grounded in self-care, and they're grounded in love, and they're grounded in compassion, and that not every child or every, you know, motherhood can mean a lot of things. And it's also, a woman doesn't necessarily need to be a mother to be complete in her womanhood. And so I just wanted to kind of ask a little bit about your own journey in care and compassion, and for you when it comes to being a mom. You know, you get to see me be auntie, so which is a really fun vibe. But I'd love to hear from you about that.
Well, again, in the more, I would call them organic, earth-based cultures, not industrialized, you know, the intergenerational family is still the foundation of life and community. And I am very blessed to actually live with my oldest daughter and my son-in-law and my two grandchildren. And I sleep every other night, switch off with my two grandchildren. And I did that with my own children. And they honestly, they slept with me until they were like 10 and 12 years old. And my granddaughter now is 11. And like when you realize and you're in menopause that you're never going to have another baby, there's a grieving process. And it's even more so than that empty nest syndrome. And I've just been so blessed because I have this opportunity to live as my grandmothers and my great grandmothers did, in a family cohesive unit. And my girlfriends always laughed at me. You wanted to be a grandmother since you were like 5 years old. I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right. So I think that is really, I think it's hard for this past few generations because that was taken away from them. So many of them haven't learned or experienced those intergenerational families. Homes. And I think that just does a great disservice to our communities in general because we're all separated. It was encouraged to separate everything, and it's just not how we were designed. We should be together, caring for one another. It does take a village, and I just, having known my own emptiness when I didn't have my mother to guide me when I became a mother, it just fortified my want and desire to help other women. And then, you had mentioned that some women choose not to have a baby. And there are women who, for whatever reason, will not have a baby. Mm-hmm. And that's also very heartbreaking. But there are other ways that women can show up to be a mother, and men can show up to be a mother. There are a lot of children in this world that need a father or a mother, but more importantly, they need somebody who loves them and wants to take care of them and guide them into their, life. Yep. And that is not gender specific. Yes. Although women do give birth, the mothering aspect does not necessarily mean female.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways.
You don't want to get caught into that, and you don't want to eliminate the possibility of all the love that can come from others.
I love that. Yeah, all the love that can come from others, and that, children at the heart of it need care, and they need connection, and they need community. Mm-hmm. And those are the themes that I continually heard. And yes, I love that intergenerational connection. And so I want to invite Alicia in to share. I got to see her beautiful intergenerational connection at the gala when I got to see your mom, your 98-year-old mother, who then held hands with my mom most of the night, and to see the care. And I got to see your sisters, and I got to see your daughters, and really reminded of that power of community, because I truly believe that that is such a key part of Indigenous wisdom that we don't always see in colonized society or industrialized society. So Alicia, I just love to hear if you have a expression of motherhood that you would like to bring into the episode.
Yeah, there's so many forms of relations, right? And bringing family together and to be a mother. I did not have children, and I could not have children. So, I get the blessing of having two beautiful women, young women, who call me mom, through the whole adoption, into your life path. And as a matter of fact, my eldest is a doula, and she works a great deal with the Indigenous community in Denver, but her primary focus is within the BIPOC community. Mm-hmm. And, Peggy, as you were speaking about, they could have that connection to a local hospital. And she did her training. Part of the training was within that hospital. But I believe she brings that power of you're claiming your voice for yourself and for your future generations, for those that you're bringing into this world. And that is so important. Mm-hmm. And yes, as to the gala, I mean, that was a blessing for me to have my mom there, to have my siblings there, mom there, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, all of those things
Yes.
that bring joy into your life, all under one roof.
Mm.
And to know, my life has been a different choice, right? And a different path than many other women experience. Yeah, but equally as powerful.
I love that. And yeah, equally as powerful. And, there's so many different paths to that connection. And it's a beautiful note to end on, that it is about care, it is about connection, it's about community. So something that I don't share often is that I'm not able to have children. And this is, so Genevieve, Peggy's daughter, has been a best friend of mine for a long time. And we've talked about that. And I still remember the day that, which is 12 years ago now, that she told me that I was going to be an auntie. And that was not something I had necessarily anticipated. I was raised as an only child, family, community, that connection I didn't necessarily have in some of the same ways that I have today. And so when she said, I'm going to be an auntie, I was like, I don't know what that means. But there was this period of time that I lived in this house with Peggy and Genevieve and the kids and her husband. And we had that family connection. And now I live down the street, and I feel very much like, while I didn't necessarily take the traditional motherhood path, that I still have a path to it and an impact to it. My niece definitely chats and texts me, and there are times when I think of, there was one day she came down the stairs and was talking about Beyonce, and everybody looked at me like, clearly we know where she got that influence from. And so I think that there's power, and at the end of the day is that we have power and influence. We as women, as femme-identifying folk, especially as BIPOC women, and have divine power, and we always have. It's why Mother Earth feels so connected to us, and there's so many ways that we can use that power and influence. And the more that we have people like you, Alicia, using your influence for the greater good, to build up community, to build up, a family globally, the more hope that we have for our world. And, Peggy, the more we have women like you who are bringing, and I would ask you where people can find you, especially I know that you offer local yoga for pre and postnatal. Can you tell us a little bit about where people can find you?
I am at Sharing Yoga in Concord on 51 Main Street, Concord, New Hampshire, because there are a few Concords. It's a wonderful space. They're very, very open and loving, and I love being in that space with them. And when I'm in the yoga class, when I try to share that with the girls, this is your sanctuary. Come in here. This is a sanctuary for you. And I also teach online at the Tree of Life Interfaith Temple in Amherst, New Hampshire. So I kind of pop around a few little places, but my main point is at Sharing Yoga.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, Indigenous wisdom for modern times. Absolutely. And we appreciate it so much. And before we go, I do want to kind of give a reminder of all of the things. I think, Alicia, I feel like we're about to be really busy for the next month.
Yes, things are picking up. Yes, they are. Yeah.
So Alicia mentioned that we have NOCO. Alicia is going to be a speaker at NOCO, which is going to be April 11th through 13th in Estes Park, Colorado. I will be guiding a nature stroll on the 13th in honor of our Get Outside fundraiser. And people that donate, there was illusion of, oh, where's my camera? The sticker. There we go. We have the beautiful Her Many Voices logo on a medicine wheel.
Save me one.
Holographic. Yes, I've saved a few for you. So those who are donating early can get these. I think we only printed like 100 of them. So you got to get them quick. So I just want to encourage people to get outside and continue to take Indigenous wisdom in our modern time. So thank you, Peggy. Thank you, Alicia. And namaste.
Thank you for filling in today, Victoria. Myrna, who most people are usually seeing on the other side of the screen here, Myrna's taking a little break for herself this week. It's her birthday. Well, I think it was yesterday, day before, the 28th. Belated happy birthday, Myrna. And yeah, so thank you for coming in today. And Peggy, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. It was my pleasure. I'm so honored. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Take care. Until next month. Bye.
Bama P.